Okay.
There you go.
Well, happy Friday the 13th.
It is. It's Friday the 13th. Yikes.
It's exciting and scary for some. Are you superstitious?
Not particularly. I have enough bad luck on my own time. I don't need to add an extra day. We're all good on that.
Yeah,
But hey, it's also almost Father's Day.
it is. Yes, happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Father's Day weekend.
Yes, it is. I was pretty lucky. My son told me this morning before I left. He said, "Dad, what do you want for Father's Day?" I said, "Ribs." He says, "I'm cooking."
That sounds
So we're getting some ribs on Sunday. I'm excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exciting. I don't know. My husband likes steak, so we probably do steak, potatoes, maybe a salad.
That's pretty Western Pennsylvania, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes,
it is.
Yes,
It
it
is.
is.
So happy Father's Day to all of the fathers viewing.
Indeed.
And yeah. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, Tamika, one of the things that I love to talk about, and I've been told that I do too much of it, is talking and communication.
Yes.
Communication to me, Tamika, is one of those things that it's getting to be a little bit of a lost art.
Yes.
Communication is so instant anymore with the devices,
Yes.
with the phones. And communication, I think we can divide it into two subsets. There's the ability to speak, that's me, thank you very much. And then there's the ability to listen, which my wife tells me I'm not so good at.
Got it.
And listening to me is probably the more important of the two.
Yes. Agreed.
That's another thing with speaking that's difficult. How do you keep that flow going? How do you keep people interested without throwing those words in as you think?
Before I answer your question, I have a question for you.
Sure.
If someone is communicating, let's say I'm the initiator of the
Okay.
communication, and you don't understand what I'm saying, who takes responsibility for that?
Well, I'm going to say, from my standpoint, that the person listening should take the responsibility by, and there's many different clues. I can, like in school, I can raise my hand.
Sure.
I can interrupt you and say, Tamika, I did not get that. Or I can make a very meaningful expression on my face or a quizzical expression. And as a speaker, you need to kind of pick up on that and circle back.
Interesting.
How about asking questions as you speak, as you promote? Did everyone get this?
That is true. That's a good, yes. That's a good indicator that, looking for facial expressions or any kind of gesture that signals that they're not understanding.
Did you ever watch old videos of Bob Hope?
Very few,
Okay, I'm a little older. Bob Hope was.
but I know who he is.
You know who he is?
Yes,
That's
I
good.
do know who he is.
So Bob Hope, to me, was the master of reading the audience. He'd be out there telling his jokes, and as he'd tell that joke, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up or not, because I have, I don't know, glasses on, but he'd watch, and his eyes went back and forth and back and forth. If he saw that audience panning that joke,
Right.
he stopped that vein and he pivoted and went in another direction.
Smart.
And that's huge as a speaker, is to watch and see how that's being
Absolutely.
communicated.
Absolutely. But to answer your question, so let's go back to the question. What was the question?
I knew you were going to ask that.
I was listening.
You
but
were
we got-
listening,
yeah.
and I was so busy formulating. No. My question is, how do you, I may change it a little bit for you, but how do you take what you have in your mind as that picture, put it into words, and then have that picture reappear in someone else's mind? How do you go about doing that?
Through emotion. I typically try to figure out what my emotions were when I was experiencing said event, and then portraying that onto the audience.
Tapping into that emotion, which is huge. Emotion is what drives thought,
Exactly.
and thoughts are things.
Yes.
Thoughts are things.
Yes.
So you can do that and use that emotion to kind of guide it. you can also project prior to
Yes.
your speech.
Yes.
This is what I want my audience to feel.
Yes.
This is what I want them to walk away with. I know for myself, if I'm going to, like I did last night, I gave a talk on some health topics, and I had a set list of things that I wanted to tick off as I went down. I wanted them to understand those things.
Yes.
And then afterwards, I circled back and asked, did everyone get all of that? Is there anything you wish me to repeat or reiterate? And
Good
then
point.
you quiz them.
Yes.
A little bit. Did you understand what I meant when I said subluxation of the L5 vertebra? You know, not really, but you get the point.
I think that's important. You touched on something indirectly, recapping what you stated in the beginning. Because sometimes people didn't hear it the first time. They got the gist, but they didn't hear it and internalize it. And when you recap in a simple way, they can say, oh, okay, that's what he meant, or that's what she was saying.
Exactly.
And so the recap is very important to kind of sum up what you've been saying, feed it back to them, and then close like a powerful close if you're doing a speech or a presentation.
Right. And as adults, that is how we learn. It's exactly adult learning. I want to know, that's why I flip to the back of the book and I read the back cover, right? I want to know what you're going to cover,
Yes.
and if it holds my interest, I'm
Good
in.
point. Good point.
If it doesn't, back it goes, right?
Exactly.
So you give them the points, you give the material, you sum up. Yeah, that's perfect. That's the perfect way to do it. How successful is that for you as you find yourself doing speeches?
Very successful. But even more successful than recapping is a powerful opening and a powerful closing statement.
Absolutely.
That's even more important because that's what grabs people's attention when you start, and then they stay with you, and then you close out very positive, very powerful, and then it leaves them thinking about your speech or your presentation.
It's a great point. And that parallels what we're doing here by using social media.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
In social media, I have read, I don't know because it came on the internet,
It must be true.
must be true. I have read that you only have a very few seconds to grab that attention as that person is scrolling by.
Yes.
Great opening. You have to have something that powerful
Solid.
to grab them. And then if you don't hook them within a certain amount of time,
They're scrolling.
they're gone. As a public speaker, do you find that is something that's more to your advantage being in person, or do you find it more of a detriment? How do you see that?
In person is always best because there's an energy that comes along with it. And you can feel people's energy, and it just makes it that much more. You're able to communicate even more, like it's just layers of communication. My body language, you're able to pick up on my energy, you're able to hear the words that I'm saying. So in person is always best.
I agree with you. I think as a speaker, I'm not bound to that 2 or 3 seconds to get your attention. I
Exactly.
can do other things.
Correct.
We can gesture.
Yes.
I can take advantage of a space that I'm in to move or to signify something. You can change the tone of your voice. You can change the speed with which you're talking to make a point.
Yes.
So those types of things, which are a little harder to do on social media.
They are.
A little harder.
They are. You just don't capture that same essence on Zoom or social media or any of the online platforms.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Instances where you have been, how about if you name me a couple instances where you have been where public speaking was not only necessary, but maybe found you just a tad uncomfortable?
Well, that's an interesting question because I was recently asked to be the MC for an event,
Okay.
Master of Ceremonies, and I've done it before, but I'm nervous because I'm doing it again. So it's just one of those things where it's a half a day situation and kind of like a seminar training session, and I know I'll do fine, but you always just wonder, how do I sound? Am I, and you don't know how you'll feel that day.
No.
You could wake up and be wrong side of the bed.
Absolutely. Have you noticed that? That you can get out of bed, stub your toe, and by the time you get to breakfast, you're angry with everyone. You know?
Yes.
So yeah, that has a lot to do with it. Sometimes one of those unexpected events, being asked to at the last moment, hey, we had a very sad moment, maybe not a eulogy, but do you mind saying something? And you're called on at that last moment.
And you have 10 minutes.
Or less.
Or less.
Or less. I could relate a small story for you then. In my profession as a chiropractor, we started to use some medical terms a little longer than normal. And as the family gathered on my wife's side, it was at Christmas time, I was asked to give the Christmas blessing. Now there's probably 8 to 10 kids who were 14 to down to 8. So I was asking for blessing in this celebratory season. And as I said celebratory, about 8 people fell over laughing. It was just one of those words. You have to also remember who you're speaking to.
Yes.
And what you're trying to say. Being caught off guard, sometimes that's hard to do. Because you're formulating as you're speaking and as it's being delivered. It's difficult.
Absolutely. Tell me about a time where you thought you were going to present well, you practiced, you did everything right, and then you deliver your presentation and it just didn't go as planned.
I would say probably the worst case of that happened. I do speeches on the regular for my patients as a public service. I meet at a local library, we gather a few people, and I talk about topics that I think that they would like to hear about. And as I was talking about nutrition, I thought that the talk made good sense, and it made good sense to me. And the deeper and deeper I got into that talk, the more I realized that I was just digging myself a very deep hole in the sand.
Oh no.
Because I was starting to go into cellular physiology, and I was starting to get into, microbiology and all of these different things. Well, how can you describe those terms in a term that someone else is going to really truly grasp? And I went too deep, too far. It was a bad choice.
Aw, sure.
But they were all very polite. They applauded and said that they enjoyed the talk. They came back, so it was okay.
Yes, yes. And that's one thing that's really also important is you want to speak almost at a 3rd or 4th grade level. Simple words are better.
Yes.
Because everyone is not on the same wavelength, or not saying that you're at a higher wavelength, it's just everyone has a different perspective on what your topic is or what you're discussing. And so keep that in mind, and just simplicity is better.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely on that. If you, and I've made this mistake especially with my patients, because the brain kicks in, I know exactly what this is. Well, of course, that's a scapular dyskinesis.
I would not know what that.
And they look at you, and your shoulder doesn't work right.
Got it.
Okay?
Yes.
And there it is.
Right.
So, and you have to remember, and it's not really that you're dumbing down. You're speaking. If you came to me and told me about something that you are extremely experienced in, something in the kitchen.
Sure.
Okay. What?
You'd say what?
So it's, you have to play to your audience, I guess.
Absolutely. And sometimes less is more also. Less words.
Yeah.
Using your pauses to your advantage. It's a huge one. I'm learning how to do that now.
It's one of the hardest things to learn.
Just how do you use it? And you're still speaking while you're paused with your body language.
Absolutely. Yeah, people are not going to, you're afraid you're going to drop them in that 2-second gap, and you're not.
They're listening closer.
Say, what? Yeah, that was a very difficult thing, and I still struggle with that, so to speak. Do you feel that you have to fill that silence?
Yes.
Was that side topic?
Yeah, sure.
Was that were you comfortable with that as you met your husband? That you're on the second or third date, and then
Sure.
all of a sudden there's that pause
Yeah.
as you're driving down the road.
Um, I would say that I was comfortable with it, and that's how I knew he was my person.
Okay.
Because I didn't feel like I needed to fill that not communicating with words, or we'd just look at each other and then smile, and so
Yeah.
it was very natural,
I
organic.
I would agree with that, and after 2 attempts at it, I would 100% agree with that because the first marriage, yes, we struggled to fill the gap. We felt we had to entertain each other. We felt we had to be saying something where the emotion supposedly wasn't there.
Yeah.
And on this one, I don't know. She better not say this. No, I better not say it. Sometimes that silence is actually appreciated.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I think it's important. And another thing too that I realize with people communicating when they're not comfortable being the center of attention or being on stage or being presenting, they tend to, when those pauses happen or when they mess up and they have to find their place again, they start apologizing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh. And that makes it worse because then you start to feel like everyone thinks the presentation is just bad. And it's not.
And it's not.
It's just a snippet. You just stop, you smile, find your place, and then repeat the last sentence that you remember and keep going.
Have you ever been in a situation, because I have, where you just say, I goofed that up, I missed my place,
Yeah.
let me start again?
Yes, you can do that too.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I actually think people appreciate the fact that you're being honest and not trying to be what
Yes.
you're not. Do you rehearse in your mind over and over and over how you're going to present a speech?
I do. When I first started presenting, I felt like I had to memorize everything. And well, I tried it. What it made me more aware of is how impressive the mind is. I mean, if I can memorize a 5-minute speech, wow, what else can I memorize? But that didn't help me in my communication skills. What helped me is visualizing my audience, where I can pause in my speech. Like, I know what my speech is. Where can I pause? Where can I draw some laughs? Where can I, add some humor? And then I just go through different ways of delivering the same speech. And then I know which way I'm going to go, which direction.
Does it ever work the way you planned?
No. No, but I will say when I visualize and I get a positive feeling about, okay, I'm going to add the speech that has a little bit of humor. And then I deliver that humor, and whether it's a hit or not, and people are laughing, I know the feeling of, it's like it already happened. The speech has already happened, even if it hasn't yet. I have this feeling of, I did my best.
Yes. And I am a firm believer that what you can imagine
Yes.
will be. Just today, I had a mental picture of a certain number of patients calling for a certain particular treatment that they needed from me.
Wow.
And before I left, I went to the office at 9, and before I left at 10:30, I had the exact number of people that I wanted to have call for that exact service.
That's amazing.
That never doubt the power of the mind.
Yeah.
Never doubt the power of the mind. It's incredible.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, no, you have to have a little bit of faith that you do know,
Yes.
and it will work. Good Lord's not going to let you just hang there,
And you won't die if you deliver a poor speech.
Just
As a matter of fact, that is my outlook on most of my speeches that I do. in my mind, I like to practice speeches when I'm delivering them. The more you do, the better you'll get. And what I like about it is that I've told myself that most of my speeches, it's like going to the gym. Most of my speeches aren't that great. They're average. But every now and then, I hit a home run. And that's what feels so good.
It's golf.
It is.
It's golf.
Yes.
I can score. I am for 9 holes. I'm a 75, 80
Yeah.
score.
Yeah.
But I'll hit one shot,
Mm-hmm.
just one.
Yes.
I'm coming back. You know,
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah.
Do you find that being able to communicate better, deliver a speech, has led to other eventual benefits in your life that maybe you weren't thinking were going to come your way, but because you communicate well, you found these?
Yes, and it's mostly inward. It's confidence in a lot of things. Confidence as a wife, as a mother, just being able to communicate better, being able to listen closer and hearing things that I never heard before when my kids said the same thing over and over. Now I'm hearing it a little bit differently and I'm like, okay, that's what they meant. It's just overall confidence. I didn't expect that.
I will say from an observer of you
Yes.
for the past couple of years that there's one that you leave in common that's important.
Yes.
You are a leader. You're a natural leader. You have an ability to draw people to you.
Did you hear that?
And you do. And it's, I call it a quiet confidence. It's not a, oh, look at me. You know,
Sure.
It's you can walk into a room and there's enough confidence in you that it doesn't matter who's in it.
Yeah.
You're going to be comfortable, whether
Wow.
you're speaking, listening, whatever. And I think that comes from knowing that you can communicate. I think that's just an unintended benefit.
Yes. Yeah. Wow, thank you
You're
for
welcome.
that compliment. And I must say, I've always thought you were an excellent speaker. So you were part of a speech contest. This is how I knew, wow, this guy's really good. He did a speech about, I don't even know how to put it. What would you call?
It would be an assisted evacuation of an impacted bowel.
There you go. And you delivered that speech so flawlessly. There was no offense taken. It was not offensive. The wording was perfect. It was actually a funny speech. It ended up being so funny, and you kept just winning and winning and winning. I was like, wow. I mean, this is amazing. So that is your strong suit. You can communicate something that most people don't want to talk about to an audience. I mean, that takes skill.
Either that or it has to have happened a lot in your life, one of the two.
That too, yes.
But yeah, that was a fun speech.
Yeah, that was
a lot of
great.
fun.
It was so good that I was supposed to be timing it. It had to be within a certain time frame, and I was so enthralled in the speech that I forgot the time. And I remember holding up the red card, and he's like, or I think it was yellow. It
Yeah,
was one of them.
whatever.
And I felt so bad, but it was such a great speech. I just forgot to do my job.
Dealing with a time frame when you speak
Yes.
is difficult. Now, for me, and I would imagine even from observing, our difficulty is more not having too little to say. Our difficulty is having
A lot.
too much to say.
Yes.
And how do you pare that down? Whereas I do believe we are in the minority. I think most folks are more, give me 10 seconds and I can say it and I'm out of here, you know.
Right.
But
But then once you get into that 10 seconds, you realize, oh wait, I have more to say. I think that's where it comes from, just defining words, defining meanings of what your topic is. There was something, earlier this morning I was having a conversation with my husband about the word simple. And simple doesn't mean easy. Most people think they kind of associate simple with easy. When I say something is simple, That means there's steps to take that make it simple to follow, but it's not necessarily easy.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That puts a different shade on things.
it does.
Yeah, because my dad used to call me simple-minded all the time.
And that's not bad.
No.
People think, and that's what my husband said. He said that his grandmother used to say if she referred to someone as simple because she was a school teacher, that meant that they were a little special.
Well, and words today have all taken on so many different meanings.
Yes. So you have to define.
You have to
those
be able to
words.
define it. Yeah, when I was a kid, bad was bad.
Yeah.
Now bad's good.
That is, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Or, well, there's so many other words. You just go.
Oh yeah. Fire. My kids say fire. And I'm like, you don't want to scream that somewhere.
No.
You know, you'll get arrested.
Yeah, they'll haul you out for saying that.
But yeah, that it's true.
It's a difficult thing, and there are different characteristics of people that take things and say things differently. I grew up in a small community, people may not know it, Ford City. And in Ford City, it was a very, very Central European ethnic village. There was a glass plant, and there was a pottery plant. And we had the Lithuanians over here, the Ukrainians were down here, the Czechs were over here, the Germans were over here, the Italians were over here, and the Irish were over there.
Sure. Yeah.
Now the kids, we all understood each other. We all spoke English. Mom and Dad were broken English. Grandparents
Didn't speak.
didn't speak English.
Sure.
And sometimes you had to be careful when you're talking to the parents how you were seeing certain things because of different interpretation, a different meaning to the word to them.
Sure.
But it was a great place to grow up. I ate well. Man, those people all know how to cook.
Oh yeah.
Woo.
Oh yeah.
It was good stuff.
Aw.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting how that all has played out just over the simple thought
Yeah.
of communication.
Sure. Sure. I think for me, I could do a whole speech, a 5 to 7 minute speech about just defining words.
Absolutely.
I mean, and defining what I mean and giving examples and then, really driving that home. Just a simple word, you could turn it into a speech. Simple.
Simple speech. There was many times as I went through schooling, the postgraduate stuff. There were guys who were obviously operating at an intelligence level that was just well beyond what the rest of us in the room were doing.
Yeah.
And I understood why they were there. But at the same time, their ability to communicate was horrifically low,
Yes.
making that difficult subject even harder to grasp. And I can remember seeing the frustration on them as they would give out these tests, which I know for a fact, looking backwards on it, that they worked very hard. They worked very hard to get the ideas across. They thought the test was going to be amazingly easy,
Yes.
simple.
Yes.
And we struggled.
Yeah.
We struggled.
Yeah.
I think better communication skills on their part, they probably didn't think about that.
No. And that's the thing is communication is so important and I don't think we learn it properly in school
Very good point.
at all.
Most of the time, I know in my high school, there was no debate team.
No.
There was a few moments of public speaking in an English course somewhere
Sure.
along the line, middle school,
Sure.
early high school.
Yeah.
And you probably spent less than a week on it for maybe 30 kids in a classroom, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing we need to get better at presenting so that we don't have that fear. The more you do it, the better you get. And working on what you do well and not even thinking about what you don't do well because why spend time on it?
And to add to what you were saying on that, as well as the simplicity, being able to communicate well with yourself,
Yes.
giving clarity of thought,
Yes.
learning how to organize what you're going to do, communicate with yourself when I'm going to do it, why I'm going to do it, it makes the job so much easier.
It does.
I have flown by the seat of my pants. That's not fun.
It's not.
It's not fun.
No. No.
It's not.
Yeah. And It could work though, if you fly by the seat of your pants, as long as you have organization of what you're going to say or what your topic is.
But that comes from being a communicator.
Yes,
If
that
you're
is
not a
true.
communicator,
That is true.
I have children who, yeah, they either need communication skills or organization skills. I don't know which.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I try as hard as I want. I can't beat it into them.
No, no, and that's the thing is, like I have 3 children. One of them is a toddler, so we throw tantrums.
She's a cutie.
But I have teenage sons, both they're twins, and one of them is an excellent communicator. It's like he came out of the womb and just knew how to communicate. And the other one is not a good communicator. For instance, they got cell phones when they were 12, a couple years ago. And one of them, he set up his voicemail. He just knew how to do it. I don't know. He just knew he had to set up his voicemail. He answers the phone and he says hello. My other son just presses the green button and then just
Yes, and if you're on the other end of that line,
exactly.
you don't know.
No, I said hello. He says yeah. I said, when did you answer? I didn't know. But he never learned that, so that was an opportunity for me to teach him. When you pick up the phone, you say hello, or you say your name, like, hi, this is so-and-so. Just, picking up the phone, letting people know that you're there, that you've answered.
How different that is. I'm thinking back now, as you're talking about this, to my youth. There was no cell phones. As I would have been, I was 14, oh my goodness, I'd have been 68, 69,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
There was a phone that hung in the kitchen.
Yes. Yeah.
And Dad, as a chiropractor, had his professional phone line for his place, but there was no overlap. You couldn't
No.
get them both. But Dad demanded of us as children, when we learned this, that you picked up the phone and you announced, this is the Weber residence.
Yes.
This is Kirk speaking.
Yes.
How can I help you?
Yeah.
And to this day, if you call my office, that is exactly how I'm going to answer that phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the cell phones and with the, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I think so many parents are so busy trying to do what they have to do to bring in enough income to keep a family going
Yes,
that some of those things kind of get pushed aside.
they do, and they're so important.
So important.
We used to, when I was a kid, we would answer and say, this is the Thomas residence. And so that was expected. You didn't, or if my parents weren't home, or if they told me they weren't home, tell them I'm not here. If they told me to take a message, we had to take a message.
Yes.
And you had to write it down. This is Mrs. Johnson, or
You took the name, the number, the pencil, and the pad was right there.
Yeah. So that's all what's missing from today's communication.
Absolutely. It is missing. You have your eyeballs in that beat too, don't you?
I do.
I do too, little boy. But yeah, communication's huge. It's a much bigger piece of what's going on for us as human beings, for us as a community, as a nation, as a world.
Yes.
I wish people around the world would learn to communicate better.
Yes.
How much would be wiped out we wouldn't have to deal with if people could just
Exactly.
communicate?
Yes. And going back to the question that I asked you earlier, whose responsibility is it if I'm the initiator of the communication, I have my listener, they didn't understand what I was saying? I actually think it's the responsibility of the initiator.
Okay.
I had this debate with my mother.
Okay.
Her and I are very different. German is her first language. English is her second language. She understands everything in English. But my mom she's a thinker, and so she's always thinking of her response before listening.
Boy.
And so I'll say something to her, and she's thinking of her response, so she doesn't hear everything that I said. And when I notice that with her, I have to say, Mom, did you hear what I said? And I say it again. And I told her, I said, it's always the responsibility of the communicator. So if she initiates, and if I don't understand, then that would be on her.
I see your point, and that is a good point.
Mm-hmm.
You then also, not only as a communicator with your voice
Mm-hmm.
and with your ears, now we're talking about adding communication with your eyes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
You have to combine as many of those senses as you can,
absolutely.
which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. I like that.
Yeah, it's the responsibility of the initiator. And actually, knowing is half the battle. For me, once I know that, then I can say, okay, it was my fault if someone didn't understand. And that really, it takes the guesswork out of it. I don't have to guess if you didn't understand because I took responsibility for it and made sure that I communicated as well as I possibly could.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It kicks another memory for me then. I have a sister and a daughter who are both teachers.
Mm.
My sister is retired. My daughter is, she's 40, so she's mid-career.
Yeah.
And the difficulties that they have as communicators,
Mm-hmm.
now you're talking to a heterogeneous group
Yes.
of different rates of learning. You're talking about different interests,
Different background.
different backgrounds, all of these different things. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you take something
Oh,
and make that easily understood by all of those groups?
that's tough.
That would be very tough.
That would be tough. That would be, I almost think you'd have to check in with each individual person, each student and say, did you understand what I was saying? I don't know if there's time for
I was
that.
just going to say, how do you find time
Exactly.
for this?
Sure.
And
That's
then you
tough.
can actually see then how irate parents come in. Well, Billy didn't understand this.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
Billy's one. I had 26 others,
Right, Exactly.
So how do
Yeah,
you do that?
that is tough. That
Very,
is-
very tough. Communication, baby. Makes
Yeah,
the world go round.
it does.
It
It does. It's good. And any topic, you can talk communication on any topic, whether it's body language, picking up people's gestures, the huffing and puffing, like if you're in line at the grocery store.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
No words are necessary.
words
you can
necessary.
pick up on people's energy and
Yes. Being a
gesture.
little more observant. Well, and to show you how well this can play, I'm going to use an example right now, right here.
Yes.
This entire video has been shot with no advance notice,
No.
no notes. This is all coming off the top of the dome, feeding back and forth off of each other
Yeah.
because communication can occur.
Yes.
And we've all sat with those people where we throw them out some bait,
Mm-hmm.
waiting
Yes.
for a response, and you get
Exactly.
nothing.
Yes.
And it's not that they are simple.
Right.
It's just that they are petrified to say something. They're
Sure.
afraid it's going to be wrong. They're afraid they're going to offend or whatever it is.
Of course. Of course.
And learning to communicate when you hear so many of those words. Think
I
how many
agree.
exciting people out there we pass by
Yes.
who never open up to us.
No. No. And people are so lonely just around the world. People are so lonely. We have our cell phones and we have social media, but there's a disconnect between that connection, that human connection.
Absolutely.
And so, and that's why podcasts do so well,
I think so.
because it's a conversation. It's,
You're watching two people converse and you're thinking you're actually in that conversation
Yes.
with them. You ever find yourself talking with them as it goes?
oh yeah,
Me
yeah,
too. Me too.
sure, yeah, it's great.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. Until next time, I'm sure there will be more.
I'm hopeful.
Yes.
I
So,
like it. I'm a talker.
so am I.
All right.
Perfect. Have a
Thank you
good
so
one.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.